Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're catching me from. It's so good to be back in here in our Whisperers Lounge. I tell you, I'm so excited. Welcome to Whispers in a Bottle, Grown Talk Cocktail Fridays. I am your host, Sonya LaRae. I'm a lifestyle relationship counselor, fashion psychologist, educator, and motivational speaker. I'm so glad to be here today and to have this discussion because it is so important for us to come in and be here together and to really have these discussions. Today is kind of a little different. I'm so sorry. I can't ever be great because my little partner, who is Simon, will always show up and be in the blind. So I apologize to you all ahead of time because he just is going to do his thing. He's going to show up, he's going to make sure that he comes in and shows himself somewhere. So welcome. I always love for you all to get into the discussion, so please feel free to drop your comments, your questions in the chat box. You see what this topic is about. It's a real intimate conversation, and one that I really wanted to have today because I have to tell you something. Sometimes these discussions are birthed from a place and a space of me, like being in a situation or sitting in a place of thinking and trying to kind of see where I'm going to go or what I'm going to be talking about. So, our regular show is on Friday at 3 p.m. at blogtalkradio.com/whispers in a bottle. So this is a bonus discussion before we even get into our discussion on Friday, because we are stepping into our happiness, living and moving into better and happier lives. You see, my partner in crime is back there just showing out because I can't get to him, because if I turn my back on you all, it's just rude. So I apologize to you greatly. So, like I said, drop your questions, your comments in there. I am monitoring them. So, look, I want to get into this discussion because, this year in itself for us here at Whispers in a Bottle, as well as for my own life, has been so different and chaotic, and different little elements have gone on. So, literally, I thought, look, I wanted to come in and have a great discussion. Good morning. Yes, an intimate chat. It's good to see you in the chat box. Welcome. So, this morning's discussion really kind of has been sitting in my soul for a minute. And, as parents and people, we prepare our children along their life and along their way as we have them for a little bit of everything that comes up and that they have to deal with and face. We really want to kind of get them prepared to be able to adult in a great way and to be healthy in a great way. Well, needless to say, I have to tell you one area that we as people fall short in, and that is really preparing our children and ourselves for when we're no longer there or no longer avail to them. So why I said this was an intimate conversation was because of this. So this year, I've really kind of had a scuffle. I've had some learning curves, and I had different things that came in that really made me start to focus and think about this particular conversation. And even like my partner in crime, Nelson, who it holds me down with a little bit of everything. I'm so glad because he's kind of pouring in from the chat box as well as from in our private Zoom room, because I have even like I didn't even know that we were going to have a couple of people in there, which is really nice. And matter of fact, it is everyone from my office from LaPaz. So it's everyone from over in Paris to here in the States. So because it's already a certain time overseas, so they're here, and for them to be here like this is big. So literally this year, we literally had such a way of growth that we had to do. But I realized something so powerful in this season of growth for myself as well as the rest of my staff. It was that we really were not prepared for when my mom literally was no longer with us. And I was really not prepared for it either. And I have to tell you that it really shook me to my core. So this year has been one of those years that I can honestly say, as a therapist, I've really had to lean all the way into everything that I teach, everything that I believe, and even what I fortify all of you with. So, why I thought this conversation was important is because, we have a lot of discussions in our lives, all of us. And if you're a parent, I need you to really kind of listen and lean into this conversation today, because this is something that even for myself, I didn't do. And even for my staff, I didn't do it, or my sibling, I didn't do it. I didn't do it for any of them. None of us did this. None of us have even experienced this. And some of you all who have already walked down this horrible dark street know how impactful this is. The conversation that I'm talking about is when we're no longer there for our children, meaning that now our kids are left without our presence, without us being the voice that is constantly there. So I want to just kind of lay the platform for you and tell you a little bit of why this discussion is important. I realized in this year's time, I really thought I had been adulting in such a dynamic way. And it's so funny. And we laugh about it. Like in my office, we laugh about a lot of things, even in my house, with regards to certain elements. But literally, I realized that I have not been really adulting in such a brilliant way, because I found out how much I really relied on my mom. Vice versa, she really relied on me as well. But here it is. So, as you all know, I run a very thriving business and I have a lot on my plate, from the speaking engagements that I have, different things that I'm working on throughout the agency from overseas to here because we're international, to different elements of me doing the show that I bring forward on every Friday at 3 p.m. for Whispers in a Bottle. Then I have different shows that are on different platforms, plus the counseling that I do with my clients. And then on top of it, I have a house and a home life and everything else. And I always tell you all about my butterfly, which is my little 10-year-old. So, and my family dynamic, everything in my house and all. But I didn't realize how much my mom had picked up the slack and would carry with me for those times that I was so challenged and pressed. So I never realized that even on the day to day things, like as far as it goes with upkeep of my home, the housekeeping, how things were run. And then on top of it, you got to think about this. The other side of that coin is that we don't have people in our home because of COVID as well. So we have to be even safe with regards to that. So it's not like you can have extra people just traversing in and out of your house. Because if you want to stay safe, you want to keep your little people healthy and everything else, you can't do that. But the biggest factor that I realized is this: in all that I said and everything that I was doing, I had never prepared myself for a day that my mother would no longer be here with me, no longer be that voice, that sounding block, that instrument in my life. So in turn, it made me start thinking about, and I woke up with this on my mind yesterday and today. And when it was so deep on my heart today that I was really thinking about it and everything as I was getting ready, it was really bringing forward and I was focused on it. I said, you have got to come in here, sit behind this microphone with the whisperers, and really have an intimate conversation about this journey. So, this is a conversation that is difficult, but it's one that's necessary. And I would actually say that if I could rewind this clock to a year and a half to 2 years ago to bring forth and birth this discussion, I would have. Because what I found out is that I wasn't as prepared as I thought I would be. And we're never going to be fully prepared, because that's why death is an enemy, because we're never prepared for that. But it's something that we do need to have as a realistic conversation in our families. So I thought, why not give you some of the master keys and go over certain elements that you should put in place? And I realized that I'm going to even be doing this for myself. Not that I'm seeing that I'm going to be kicking the bucket no time soon, but you never know in life. So I decided, look, I wrote down a couple of things and I got my notes here. Matter of fact, it's on my computer because I wrote them up and I didn't want to miss any of them. And I wanted to lean in on this in the biggest way possible because a lot of times we feel that our little people and our family members and different ones we love just cannot handle the conversation. Well, yeah, we can handle the conversation if it's done correctly. So when you start speaking about something as big as death or losing people, period, you have to really start to speak words that are loving and compassionate. You have to allow your people to know that, you know what, there may be a time and a day that we're no longer together and that I'm no longer here to support and to direct you. And I want you to know certain elements to really get you kind of ready for this walk into your life. And you allow them to ask you questions, honest questions, and not shy away from it. And really have that little open discussion that puts the fears of our young people as well as our family members to bed and to rest some. So even for myself, as I was sitting and thinking about this, my child unfortunately has experienced this in a great number from losing her two cousins at a very young age and not really knowing how to express the feelings what she was going through at a young age. She had stopped eating, she was losing weight, and we went through grief counseling, and through grief counseling they taught us to have the healthy conversation, not to avoid the conversation. And sometimes as adults, that's what we do. We avoid the conversations because we're not comfortable. And honestly, I realize that a lot of times we have to get comfortable in that space and place of discomfort. And sometimes when we do that, that's where we get to birth and nurture a different aspect. And that's what I want to talk about. Because, see, this year woke me up in such a different kind of way. I have always lived in the present. I have always been a person that I lingered on every word that has come out of my family's mouth. My mom, by far, was such a huge impact on my life. So, without her being here and being that matriarch of our life, I felt it and I feel it. And so, in a lot of ways, I needed to go back and do the necessary work to really start to nurture myself in a healthy way that would allow me to birth a conversation like this in our safe zone. And I thought this is the best time for me to do it. Looking back, I realized that I have to be willing to be open about certain elements because I don't know if this could happen. You know, you don't know. We face so many different things in our life. We can just go out to the store nowadays and people are not making it home. I mean, there was a whole community that was out shopping and someone came in the store and was shooting. And this is the conversations that we are birthing and having to have at this time. So, why not have the conversations that can actually start to cradle, nurture, and enable those that we care about, those that we love, to be able to walk through it with a sense of knowing, not a sense of depletion? And that's where I was coming from because I realized there was a huge vacancy left when my mom passed away. So, literally, I always tell people that my mother was always the beautiful wind that was always under my wings. So, if you think about it like with a kite, or if you think about it, if you've ever watched, we have the privilege of living in like a sanctuary where we have hawks and they come back every year and they bring their young. They have their young here. So we've watched them teaching their young how to fly, and we watch those beautiful birds go up under those babies and catch them back up and bring them back up under that wing, and that wind catches them and brings them back up. And that's what my mom was for me. So not to have that, you have a kite that is soaring so high, but the wind has stopped. What happens is it starts to spiral and to fall, but it comes down and it's gliding. And thankfully, I have been able to place elements into my life to start to structure and to resurface and to create that wind again. Because, see, the elements that I'm teaching you in here today are the elements that we have to start putting into place today for those that are walking through this journey now. So I thought, like, we have to tell your children what to expect, that they're not going to hear that person's voice, or maybe you start to make recordings for them so they can start to hear different little elements, different little messages or lessons that you want them to have. Start keeping a journal for them, writing for them, telling them great things or aspects that you want for your life and for what you want for their life. And you will see how it starts to build that momentum and how it starts to resonate at a different level and vibration. See, I was privileged to have my mom, and my mom had a book. And my mother's book, she left different things written, different things that she never may have said to me, but there was different things that she wrote for me, or different things that she did say to me and she put into words, or how she expressed herself, because we would talk all the time. Everybody would tell you we talked all the time. I may not talk to anybody else, but I would talk to her at least, 30 times in my day. But it was always good. But literally, this season has taught me that even I have to be willing to be open, even with the feelings, the expressions of not having that person to really kind of rattle off with. Because I always tell you guys that if you know somebody who is a therapist and the therapist doesn't have somebody that they talk to, run. And that's the truth in the matter. And I've been fortunate to have someone that really resonates with me in that way. So it's good. And then you have to give your children an opportunity to have role models outside of yourself. So sometimes you want to put different elements or different people that can be there as ones that they can really fall back on as well, and different people that will nurture, care, and love them in the way that you do. It's never going to be the same as what you do, because by far, no one can ever really take your place no matter what. No matter what. Now, unless you're like one of those parents that's like, then that's another different story in itself. But technically, no one can replace you. But you have that person who is there to comfort and kind of help them to walk through that next journey, and help them to kind of get their legs under them and to give them those life lessons that they need. So that's why I felt like it was so important to come in and have this kind of intimate conversation, because I do. I sit and I think about certain things, and I really kind of mill over different elements and different things that I go through. And I always feel like I want to leave a legacy that is something that my child and those that I impact can be proud of. And so when we think about this in this way of like us having this dynamics and everything that happens and goes through our life and those that pass through our lives, there's got to be a conversation that is had before they're no longer with us. It's a conversation that we have to be willing to have with those that have gone through certain elements, and maybe they have that facade of being okay, but it's not. And sometimes I am not okay. Even as a therapist, we're not okay with everything. Because, like I said, we don't have the sounding board of that beautiful person that was with us. And I always called my mom Flower. She was Flower from the age of like 2 to 3 years old. I nicknamed her Flower. And I just always, I just never was that type of kid that, you know, didn't have the relationship with their parents. And I mean, it was different like when my dad passed away, and it was very challenging, very hard, even when he passed away. But the difference was that I had my mother. I really had my mom to resonate with and to really fall back on, and to talk to her and hear her advice and her sound words and all. And now it's just me. But I have people in my life, and matter of fact, in the chat box right now is one of those people that I value so much, because she gives in a different kind of way, and it's so beautiful. She is one of those people that literally, she's genuine and across the board. And she has enriched my life in different ways as far as it goes, coming in to being a close friend, kind of like a family member, a business partner, a little bit of everything. But she's always there, even when she doesn't realize that I'm actually just tapping in because I need to be replenished. And she does that for me. And then I have even my own family that I can tap into and just kind of sit back and just be me. And at all times, I'm always me. But there's an element of Sonia that is a little deeper, and that is quiet and kind of resolved in a certain way, that is reserved. And so when I have these thoughts and these feelings, a lot of times I don't necessarily share them out here, but I share them inside of my circle. And my circle is very tight. It's very tight. It's not easy to get into. It's not something that I'm just welcoming new people in. Oh, today I'm accepting resumes. No, that's not me. That's not me at all. And but I do appreciate the ones that are here. And Nelson, by far, I cannot even tell you guys how much I love him, how much he has been such, he's like my brother. He's my best friend. He's my partner in crime. We have established LaPaz. He bought into LaPaz even before I did. And I tell you guys that story all the time. So I'm always so appreciative of him. I appreciate my little butterfly, because with her little positive attitude, even when she's persnickety, she's still awesome, and it makes me happy. And then my mate, my husband, he can be a pill too, but he's also one of those ones that holds me down. And we have our challenges, we have our difficulties, but always I know that he has my best interest at hand. And so when I said that I was going to do this conversation, I really didn't discuss it with anyone. I didn't even really tell my staff, and all of them are over here like, "Oh my goodness, you got me in tears." And they're people that they give so much to me, and I appreciate them, and I can call them and they are right on the spot. Josh stepping in and being such a great executive concierge, doing your all, how much I appreciate that. And that's the thing. When we're talking about conversations like this that are intimate and those challenging conversations, it requires a nation sometime to be back behind us. And sometimes we're not even realizing that we as people are going through this flux and this change, but we're not even sure how we're supposed to go about it. And then we're expecting others in our life and our family and our children and everybody else to just, you know, roll through this and be like, "Oh, you'll get through it." No, no, please don't even say that. Let me tell you something. Somebody told me, "Oh, it gets easier as the time goes." Lies. Just let me tell you something. Lies. What happens is that you start to lean into certain elements different. Certain impacts don't have such a strong impact. But I don't know when it ever will be a part or a time that it's not challenging. And I can't honestly tell you all that there is a part and a time that it gets easier. I wake up on a daily basis and I would love to just hear her say something or tell me, you know what, you're on a pathway, kid. Don't lose your focus. You got this. And those are words that I kind of miss, and different elements of just being able to sit there. And my mom would laugh because I've always been kind of quiet, and she would just crack up laughing because I could just be fine just in her presence, just sitting there. So these are things that I wanted to come in and really kind of talk to you all about, not to make this some long drawn out kind of like miserable kind of discussion, because sometimes these heavier conversations can be a little like overwhelming, but I don't want us to keep running away from them. And so many times that's what happens. We run, we put our sneakers on, we lace them up, and we get gone. But sometimes you have to be willing to step into a place and a space that is so like different from what we ever have imagined. And sometimes we have to allow the feeling just to come over us and to be there for a moment and to be present in it, and not be afraid of really saying how we feel, what we think, or where we are at a time and a place. And if people want to, fine you to death, or we all have problems and we all go through, no, no, pause. Don't be afraid to tell them, no, I don't need that kind of support. I need support. I need you to hear me, because there's going to be a day that maybe my child, my loved ones are not going to have my voice there. And I don't need you to downplay what has truly happened. And that's what we got to be willing to stop. Stop downplaying everything. Stop pretending that things don't matter, or that, things will work out in the long run. No, things just don't miraculously work out in the long run. Things don't just come to like, poof, it's okay. It does not happen that way. That's not even life. And you know what? As we went through our journey in that growth mindset, for us to continue to grow, even to grow past the hurt, the pains, the losses, it requires of us to really step back and take that honest look at things. Start to really hear people for what they're saying, telling the child what the impact of it is on even how you feel about certain elements. Because I know for myself, sometimes we want to put that brave face on, but literally, I even allowed my child to know that I couldn't even smell my mom's smell. She was so excited and happy that she had some of my mom's things and that she could smell Lala. And she would say, "Oh, don't you want to smell it? You could smell her." And it was so hard for me to even do that, but it brought her comfort. I didn't deny her that. I didn't hide that or even sugarcoat that no, this is hard for me, baby. I'm glad you love it, because I wanted her to be able to be present in her feelings and to be honest and let her see and know, oh, yes, yes, the honest look. Yes, I agree with you 100%. Thank you. Because that's the half of the battle, is that as adults, we try to put the facade up constantly. We try to pretend that we are okay through everything, and we're not. So let's stop with this whole thing. I just thought like I needed to come in and breathe into a conversation that has been sitting deep in my soul. And I think if I talk it out on the air with you all, a lot of times it brings forth and it births a different dynamics in me. And it allows me to start to walk into a space and a place to even help you all to realize how important this is, of the transparency, the intimate relationship that we have, and what I want you to build for your future relationships. See, a lot of times we don't think that way. We don't know what is happening or how it's going to impact others, but our stories are legacies for other people to learn from. Our journeys are the pathways, the GPS, or the scope that someone needs to kind of change, pivot, and move them in a direction that will enable them to show up and be better, not just for everyone else, but for themselves. And I like that. Must get the release and allow the inner pressure out. Yes. Yes. Because that's what it's about. And sometimes you can't always be that pressure cooker, because that pressure cooker, eventually you have to engage it and let that steam off so it can disengage and not implode. And that's what we have to be willing to do. But we have to lean into it a little bit with a little compassion. We have to lean into it a little bit harder with a little of that perspective, which we're going to get into that on Friday. Because, see, a lot of times it's the way that we see things and how we have to change certain elements in things. And it requires us to change our perspective. And I think through this journey of this year, and I'm about to walk through into my second year of not having my flower. My mom was just, she was a lady that everybody that knew her loved her. Everybody that came into contact with her was just impacted by her. And I'm honored to say that I've had her in my life all this time. And am I sad that she's not with me every day? Yes. Yes. Do I wish that I can share certain elements, the wins that we have, the dynamic things that we're doing, the challenges that I face, the hardships that I need help with and directions for? Definitely. Because I'll be lying to you if I said no. Because I really do. And then she left me with this little 10-year-old that Lord knows I need help with. But she also left me with wisdom. She left me with guidance. She left me with love and understanding and compassion. So in turn, she left me in a good space and place. And this is what I want you all to start thinking about for your future. Because we are not promised every day. And as people, we have to start to choose how we're going to have that direction, how we're going to have that narrative, and how we're going to imprint certain elements upon our legacies. And our legacies are not just our children, but they're the people that we impact. If you own a business, if you have friends, if you have family, or you're building a community with certain ones, or you have people that you have placed in certain spaces that are very special to you, you have to start walking and speaking in a way that prepares them for the what if, what could be, what might be. So, like I said, I'm not overly long winded. I come in here, I share different elements with you that I feel are very important. And I felt this discussion was very important because it was so deep in my soul. And sometimes when I have things like that, you know, I tap into it and I really want to sit in a place and reflect on it. And I was reflecting on it. But I really knew that I needed to come in and have this discussion Because how many of us really are preparing our loved ones and our children for a day when we are not there to guide them? For the day that we are not the voice that is carrying them through? Or the day that your parent is not there to carry you through? I have a very good friend of mine who literally, we had a discussion about this like maybe like 2 or 3 days ago, and she lost her dad, which she was raised in a single parent home, and her dad has always been like her my mom was to her. And she told me that even though it was 5 years had passed, it felt like yesterday. And even though it was 5 years that had passed, she still felt like that little girl that needed her dad's direction, needed her dad's input. And I told her, I said, I really understand how you feel about that. And she said, and Sonia, she said, I am independent. I've traveled the world. I've done so much. I have a great company. But she said, literally every day, I find myself wishing that I could just ask my dad questions, or just to have my dad say, it's okay. You'll get it next time. Don't worry about it. Do it again. And I know what that means. And she said, but we never had the talk about, what if he wasn't here? What do I do? Who do I call? Who do I talk to? And I told her, I said, I know the feeling, because it is so complex. So that's why I wanted to do this, because today is your day to start setting that up. Today is your day that you start implementing certain things into your life and into your loved ones' lives, so they have someone that can vibrate at that decimal that they need. So, look, guys, I told you this wasn't going to be a long discussion. I'm always so honored to come in and to spend my life seconds with you all. I hope that you found value in today's conversation, because it really came from my heart. It came from a space and a place of caring, and that I want us to do better and be better, and somehow to absorb some of the shock factor that we do go through, because that is the impact that everything has on us that can be traumatic. And one thing I can tell you, losing someone that you dearly love is traumatic. So give yourself a little grace too. And the biggest thing is, show yourself a little self compassion, because you just may realize that it's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to wander through life pretending that everything is fine. So, look, you are here on Whispers in a Bottle, Grown Talk Cocktail Fridays. This has been a special edition. I am your host, Sonya LaRae. I'm a lifestyle relationship counselor, fashion psychologist, educator, and motivational speaker. I hope you join me Friday live at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another powerful discussion, because we are going to be on that trajectory and walking into our happiness for this season. Make sure you join me at blogtalkradio.com/whispers in a bottle at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, because we are going to birth another dynamic discussion. I'd love to get social with you off air. So join me on Instagram at whispers in a bottle _podcast. We also have a great Facebook group. And notice it's whisper, no S's on the end, whisper in a bottle. And look, just come and get connected with us, so I can pour into you and you can pour into us. And don't forget to join our newsletter. We have some dynamic things that are going on in there, special invitations that are coming, as well as our cocktail mocktail of the hour. So, look, guys, continue to have a beautiful day. Make sure that you're having these intimate conversations. Do not be afraid to really kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and also acknowledge and be honest with people, but show compassion as you do it. With that being said, everyone, have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you on Friday. Take care.